another wintry day here at the homestead. It's snowing and blowing, so I'm going to hang out by the wood stove here and I'm going to cook up a batch of Gorton. What the heck is Gorton? You're probably asking. Not a lot of folks have heard of it. It's just an old family favorite recipe of ours. There's a French Canadian version as well. It's made a little bit differently. It's a pork spread, very simple to make. You can tweak the recipe to your liking. It's kind of a no-fail recipe, really. And it's a little pork spread, kind of like a pate. You serve it on English muffins or toast or crackers or things like that. Also makes a really nice sandwich. Whenever I have that flavor in my mouth, it brings me right back to my childhood, right back to deer camp, when my mother would make up a big batch of Gorton and we'd have it on some toast and hot cup of coffee right there by the old Glenwood stove. The French Canadian version is a little bit differently. It's made with milk and breadcrumbs, and I'll tell you all about that in a minute. And that is called Creaton. Well, call it Gorton, call it Creaton, call it whatever you want, but I can assure you folks it tastes a heck of a lot better than it sounds. Now, you don't get to be real specific with the recipe here. If you use a little bit more than a pound of pork, or a little more or less of the seasonings that I'm going to mention here, it really doesn't matter much. I suggest starting off, with a small batch, a pound of pork, give it a go, and then tweak the recipe to your own liking. But it's some pretty good stuff, and it's more nutritious than spreading peanut butter and jelly on your toast in the morning. I use a half an onion, right about that size there, and it's finely chopped. Now for starters, I'm going to dump in my pork. I've got just a little bit over a pound there. My onions. These are finely chopped, nice and fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and give it just a little bit of a head start on the wood stove before I add the water and the spices to it. Fire looks good. Now I only stir it around a little bit. I'm not necessarily trying to cook the meat thoroughly or anything like that. I just kind of give it a head start before I add the water and the seasoning and then put it on to simmer. Now I mixed all my dry seasonings right together here. I'm going to add water right up to about the top of the meat. Right about there. Stir in my seasonings. Now the water should just come to just about covering the meat like that there. Now the French Canadian method, the Creaton, I said that pretty good too. They use milk instead of water. And they also add breadcrumbs to it. I've never had it that way. I always make it the way that my mother did when I was growing up. It's very simple. I think if you do use milk, you're going to have to pay a little bit more attention to it when it's simmering so your milk doesn't scorch. This is just a very simple method with the water. Comes out great all the time. Now you don't have to stand over this and watch it. It's going to take quite a bit of time for it to simmer down. Occasionally I'll come to the stove, I'll use a potato masher, mash it down. I want to get the consistency nice and fine, similar to a pate. That way it spreads on the toast really nice. Don't be worried about any fat that you see from the pork. If you make this too lean, it's not going to want to spread. It's not going to be the same. Don't worry about the fat. I have used venison in the past, but I added quite a bit of pork fat to it. You got to have the fat to make this good. So don't go skimping on the fat here. Get a nice slow simmer going there, cooking right here on the wood stove. Okay, that's simmering nicely, and that's going to simmer now for probably 2 to 3 hours. So I'm going to go over to the kitchen and make up a batch of homemade English muffins to go with it. Now there's a lot of different variations to English muffin recipes as well as pizza dough recipes. Some call for using milk, some for water, some you add eggs to it, etc. The recipe that I use is just a nice happy medium between the two. It makes a mighty fine English muffin and a mighty fine pizza as well. Upon the initial rise, I'm going to split it right down the middle. I'll get 6 to 8 English muffins out of one half, and then the second half I will let go to a second rise, and then I'll make a pizza with that for supper tonight. For starters, I'm going to take 2 teaspoons of yeast, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and a ½ cup of lukewarm water. Just give it just a very light stir. And then I'm going to set it aside until it gets nice and frothy. The yeast mixture is nice and frothy, as you can see. That took about 15 minutes. Now that we have our yeast nice and frothy, I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit of a well here. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon melted butter, but you can use olive oil. 2 teaspoons of salt. I'm going to stir in about 1 1/4 cup of lukewarm milk. And the yeast mixture. Get everything mixed thoroughly. It will become quite a sticky dough in the beginning. That is coming out to be a very nice consistency there. And start the kneading process. I like to knead the dough for approximately 7 to 10 minutes until the dough feels smooth and even and takes on a nice elastic consistency. Well, now that my dough has reached the consistency I want, I'll place it in this oiled bowl, cover it over, and let it rest in a warm place until it doubles in size. Okay, the bread has risen up about double in size here. Sprinkle out a little flour. I'm going to separate this right about in half. I'm going to round this back up. I'm going to place this half back in the bowl. Now I'm going to cover this back up, put it in a warm place, and I'm going to let it rise, and that'll make a nice pizza crust for tonight. That ought to do it right there. I'm going to let it sit there until it doubles in size. Well, that's about the consistency that I'm looking for there. What liquid that is in there now is probably just the fat. So I'm going to take it off the heat and let it cool down. This part here, I'm just going to roll out to about a ½ inch thick. And I'm just using a glass here to cut out my rounds. I'll sprinkle a little cornmeal in the pan here and place the muffins on top. And a little cornmeal on the top. I'm going to go ahead and cover these and let them rise for about 45 minutes. So while the muffins are on the rise, I'm going to take advantage of this nice hot water here in the wood stove and get the dishes done. Now, this is just a really good example of why having a wood-fired kitchen stove is such a valuable asset for a self-sufficient homestead. Not only am I heating the home with the fire, I cook that gratin. In a little while, I'm going to be making the English muffins. The wood-fired oven is nice and hot to cook the pizza later on. And I have ample hot water to get all the dishes done and achieve other tasks. A lot of folks have a wood stove in their home, but they use the modern conveniences for all the other tasks, which is fine. But during a power outage, I can achieve all my tasks with one fire, and it's just a wonderful thing to have. My cost of living is very, very low, and that enables me to enjoy my days rather than scrambling off to work every day. So anyway, I'm going to get these dishes done, and probably 30-40 minutes I'll be cooking up some of those English muffins. Okay, the muffins have risen up nicely. I'm going to go ahead and put them right in this cast iron pan on a medium heat. You get a pound of venison hot Italian sausage thawing out here for tonight for the pizza. Oh, those are looking good so far. Oh, look at those. Look at that, huh? They sound to be done too. Oh yeah. That's a beautiful thing. Well, wait till Frankie sees these things. He loves the hot, fresh muffins as much as I do. You serve the gratin up cold on a nice hot muffin or toast. Yes, sir. Taste of home, gotta tell you. Hey, that's my fingers.